Chiefs Kingdom, welcome back to All Chiefed Up. We're back with another podcast for that ass, and today we're hearing some big rumors about Andy Reid retiring. Not going to happen. And then Bill Belichick coming to KC. Steve, let's talk about it.
Before we get the show started, we appreciate you guys being here. Smash that like button, hit that subscribe button, hang out with us more often. Mike, Bill Belichick to KC seems kind of stupid to me.
It's beyond stupid, but it's picking up steam. Adam Schefter sent out this alert today. Wait, Belichick to KC. Adam Schefter wonders whether Bill Belichick could replace Andy Reid with the Chiefs if Reid were to retire after this season. This has also been reported by Starcade Media, who quotes Mike Florio on the Chiefs, which we all know how Mike Florio is. He's an idiot. Yes, slap nuts. He's preparing for the possibility that Andy could retire. Could Bill Belichick take his spot if that happened, or would the players demand Eric Bieniemy? Steve, let's listen to what Andy Reid has to say about this.
I know this question gets asked just about this time every year, but considering with Pete and with Bill, do you intend to be the coach next season?
I haven't even thought about that, Nate. I mean, I'm thinking about one thing. I've figured that would come up when you guys were asking these questions, because I'm old. So, but not that old.
Steve, Andy's old, but Bill Belichick is older. Why is this a talking point?
I don't know. It makes no sense. And like Andy said, he's not thinking about that. He's thinking about cheeseburgers and Lombardis, baby. He don't care about that.
Woo!
I mean, Belichick's 72, Andy Reid's 65. That's a huge gap. That's a 7-year difference. So if we're talking about Andy being too old to continue to coach,
right,
why are we talking about Bill Belichick? I think this is the weirdest story I've seen people trying to run with this week.
This is an odd story. I don't even understand how the two correlate to even be able to report this. Why would you want to back off of Andy Reid, who's come to KC, turned the entire franchise around, molded, revived Alex Smith's career, brought in the greatest quarterback.
The greatest.
Patrick Mahomes. We're in the midst of a dynasty, 6 AFC championship games, back-to-back. We're about to win back-to-back Super Bowls for 3 rings now. Steve, there's no point to hire Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick would come in here, and I don't even think he would do anywhere near as good as Andy Reid would do.
No, he might go ahead and have them trade Patrick Mahomes so he can snag a Mac Jones out of the draft or something like that. Bill Belichick's been pretty bad since Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski left him. That's all there is to it.
Belichick is known as the GOAT. It's pretty easy to see why. I mean, come on. But is Belichick player dependent? Is he only GOAT status because of Brady? And then if so, does Brady's status now elevate even higher?
I don't know if I would go that far. I think it was just a winning combination. I think they both contributed to what happened in New England somewhat, but I think you can tell that Brady contributed just a little bit more because of what he was able to do in Tampa Bay and what Bill Belichick's been able to do after Tom Brady. I think that tells the whole story.
Right. I agree. I think that Belichick coming to the Chiefs, that is a non-story. That is ignorance. It's stupid. It's nothing. You know what it is? It's clicks. And thank you guys for clicking the video today. We appreciate it. Let's move on to some MVP talk, Steve. Patrick Mahomes snubbed from the MVP voting for offensive MVP finalist. Josh Allen, quarterback. Lamar Jackson, quarterback. Christian McCaffrey, running back. Prescott, quarterback. Purdy, quarterback. Steve, who on this list is not like the others and should not belong?
I don't know. I don't know what angle you're taking here. Christian McCaffrey because he's a running back? I don't know. In my opinion, I feel like Patrick Mahomes has to be in this conversation for the simple fact that his stats are right up there with the other guys. And he's taken this team, who the whole story all year has been he has no receivers, no one can catch the ball. They are Patrick Mahomes dependent. He is the most valuable player on that team, and they are sitting in the AFC Championship game. So, I mean, if Lamar Jackson's there, I think Patrick Mahomes has to be there.
Look, we were all told that they pick MVP based on if you pull the player off the team, would the team have the same record? Would the team be as successful? So if you go down the list and you push Josh Allen off the Bills, would they be as successful? Probably not. I think if you pull Lamar Jackson off the Ravens, they probably win pretty close to the same amount of games. It's scheme dependent. I would say they probably lose 3 to 4 more.
They're not the same team, but we did see this a couple years ago with Ty Huntley or somebody
Yes,
like that
Huntley.
came in. They still won games because they are a very defensive team. So with that scheme, I feel like they can win more without Lamar than the Chiefs could win without Patrick Mahomes or the Bills without Josh Allen. In my personal opinion, this year, I think the MVP needs to go to Christian McCaffrey. I think you can't be picking out all these quarterbacks every year because this year, none of those quarterbacks performed at a crazy MVP level. And I do feel like the San Francisco 49ers have been very dependent on that man scoring a touchdown week in and week out.
Right. Well, here's what I think. I think that McCaffrey, he generates the offense in San Francisco. This year, he has been phenomenal. Over 20 touchdowns. Crazy. Brock Purdy's taken off the list. Why? Because he's dependent on McCaffrey. If you pull McCaffrey off, they're losing more games than if you pull Purdy out of the starting quarterback
Does it make
position.
any sense to you that there would be two players from one team on an MVP finalist list?
No, it makes no sense.
Because that's just telling you right there, that's not the most valuable player if there's another guy on his team that's equally as valuable.
Right. But we all know that Lamar Jackson's probably going to win this. And so if you compare this to Patrick Mahomes, by the way, who got snubbed, it's crazy to see how much, even in a bad season, Patrick Mahomes, a bad season, by the way, how much Patrick Mahomes actually compares to the league MVP. 400 completions compared to Lamar's 300.
Right.
Like, that is insane. They both have the exact same passing percentage, 67.2. Patrick Mahomes actually has 4,183 yards compared to Lamar Jackson's 3,678. So you're looking at like 400 to 500 more yards. He has 3 more touchdowns. It's insane. If you take away all the running back stats that go into it,
right,
then they're pretty much the same. And if not, Patrick's ahead. The only thing Patrick struggled with this year, receiver dependent, by the way, 14 picks compared to Lamar Jackson's 7 picks. So he threw double the picks. But where does this – I don't understand why you can't even put Patrick Mahomes in the conversation, especially with this receiving crew, and everybody knows this has not been a secret. And then Lamar working with the best receivers and the best weapons he's had since his career started.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Lamar Jackson – you can even add in that what you called running back stats because we always poke fun at Lamar Jackson, right? Call him a running back. But you add in the rushing yards. I'm pretty sure I could be wrong. It might have ended the wrong way, like on the other end. But I think at one point, right at the end of the season, Patrick Mahomes had more combined yardage than Lamar Jackson. And they might have both finished that way. So, I mean, you can even add in the rushing stats. It doesn't matter. I feel like Patrick Mahomes is just as valuable as Lamar Jackson. And like you said, Lamar Jackson's out there throwing to Odell Beckham Jr., Zay Flowers. You even had guys like Nelson Aguilar stepping up and catching balls this year for this guy. And then you're looking at Patrick Mahomes receivers who the whole narrative the entire year was they were trash. MVS dropped balls at a rapid rate. Kadarius Toney had to be completely put on the IR with Sky Moore because they weren't doing anything. I mean, it's been a debacle with the receivers in Kansas City, but Patrick Mahomes has kept that team afloat, and now they're sitting in the AFC Championship game.
Hey, well, to go to your point, 45-72 combined yards, rushing and passing for Mahomes, only 44-99 for Lamar Jackson if you combine the two. Where it switches is he's got 5 on the ground touchdowns. Mahomes has 0 on the ground touchdowns. But other than that, I mean, their yards per attempt, 5.5 for Jackson, 5.2 for Patrick Mahomes. Lamar Jackson's long was 30 yards. Mahomes was 25. I mean, there's not that much difference, and Mahomes is not trying to be a running back in the pocket.
Right.
He does this out of necessity or to extend the play and to make something happen on a third down situation or a short yardage situation, whereas Lamar, they schedule a lot of these runs. Like, they're calling these in. I just think it's crazy. So before we move on to the defensive side, who do you think is going to win the MVP? You still think it's McCaffrey?
No, I think McCaffrey deserves it, but I think Lamar is going to win it. And I obviously think Patrick Mahomes should be in the conversation. I'm not saying Patrick Mahomes wins the MVP, even if he's in the finalist, but I think he deserves to be there as much as any of these other 5.
Right. I think he deserved at least a nod. I think it's a shame. We all know if you pull Patrick Mahomes off the team and we'd have had Blaine Gabbert all season, we would not have got where we were today. It's not going to happen.
Not a chance.
And you could say that about all the rest of them, But I think the Chiefs are in a special spot because Patrick Mahomes is that special. And to be honest, like I said, Lamar I think is going to win it, but he's got better numbers all around than Lamar, minus the 7 interceptions, which, by the way, Kadarius Toney is probably accounted for 3 of those. So we can go ahead and give him on the non-MVP list. Let's move on to Defensive Player of the Year, Steve. You got Deron Bland, Max Crosby, Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons, and T.J. Watt. Who's your early favorite here, Steve?
I see no L'Jarius Sneed, and I feel like he should be mentioned here. I know Deron Bland had that little stretch of pick sixes, and it was history and all that. But, I mean, complete shutdown corner. No one touches L'Jarius Sneed this year in the NFL, not even freaking close. And he didn't even get a nod. Once again, if you're a Chief, we don't care. But pull that list back up, Mike. I'll tell you who my favorite is right now. I have to go. Man, I'm telling you, I want to go with T.J. Watt because I think he's the most dominant edge rusher in the game, and just my opinion. I understand he's a linebacker, but same with Micah Parsons. But I think the way that Myles Garrett was playing this year, and the entire Cleveland Browns defense, the fact that they made it to the playoffs with everything that was going on there, I kind of lean towards Myles Garrett.
That's interesting. Myles Garrett. If you look back at his stats this year, not bad. He had 42 tackles, 42 combined tackles, and 14 sacks. But look, that doesn't even account for his best season by far. In 2022, he had 60 combined tackles and 16 sacks. He didn't win it. In 2021, he had 51 combined tackles, 16 sacks. He didn't win it. So I feel like Myles Garrett's out of the equation here. I feel like he's out of the equation.
It has to be T.J. Watt because I'm not going with Micah Parsons.
Right. So Micah Parsons this year had 64 tackles, 64 combined tackles, and 14 sacks. Pretty good season, but I don't give it to Parsons either. I think Parsons is out. To me, it's a 3-way race here. It's Max Crosby, it's T.J. Watt, and I think Deron Bland is a dark horse, and I'll explain this. There's not been a corner win Defensive Player of the Year, a defensive back do it since Stephon Gilmore back in 2019. Okay? That's the first one since 2011 that had won it. Okay, if you look at his stats, Stephon Gilmore in 2019, 53 combined tackles, 0 sacks, 6 picks for 126 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then if you look at Deron Bland, 69 total tackles, and then he had 16 assists. He didn't have any sacks, obviously, but 9 picks for 209 yards and 5 touchdowns. That swamps Stephon Gilmore's MVP season, Steve.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you look at Crosby, I think Crosby did well. 90 combined tackles and 14.5 sacks. He's got to be at the top. If you're looking at just sacks, T.J. Watt's got 19 of them. So I think it comes down to those 3. I would think Crosby, in my opinion. I know he's on a bad team, but Crosby all around I think is more dominant than all of them. But it could be a dark horse Deron Bland. It really could. And the reason Snead didn't get put on there is because Snead don't get picks.
Well, you said that
he didn't have 5 picks, right?
You said that Max Crosby is more dominant than all of them. That's the only reason why I leaned towards Myles Garrett, because I feel like he's harder to stop and account for than any of those other guys, arguably. Just because he's so big, so strong, and he's going to get his. But Max Crosby, effort-wise, like everything Max Crosby does comes off of pure 100% effort. So you have to lean there. I don't have a favorite in this group. I feel like any of them could win, and I'd be okay with it. The only one I don't feel like should, and I don't know why, is Micah Parsons.
That's crazy, though, because Micah Parsons, pretty good year. Isn't it kind of odd?
Is it because he's a Cowboy? Is that why?
2 San Francisco 49ers in the offensive and 2 Dallas Cowboys in the defensive side, and will both teams get shut out? It's very possible. I don't think they'll give it to Crosby, though, because Crosby plays for the lowly Vegas Raiders. So I believe they're going to look at T.J. Watt, Micah Parsons, and Deron Bland.
What was T.J.'s stats really one more time?
I don't know. He had 19 sacks. 19 sacks, something about 55, 60.
19 sacks almost gives it to you, in my opinion. Like, I think you got to go T.J.
Right, but look, Max Crosby had 14 and a half.
That's 5. 5 different.
Yeah, a little different position. He's coming off the edge. He's actually lining up against the tackle, a left tackle. So we'll see. But let's move on. Let's move on to the big story this week: Chiefs versus Ravens AFC Championship game. There's been a lot of injury news, man. Joe Tooney, the pec issue. We've got all this stuff. We've had Trey Smith dealing with some illnesses, but we got a little injury news. A little update from Pete Sweeney. Who?
What?
Pete Sweeney.
Weenie.
The Chiefs say Sky Moore still didn't practice today. Knee, Derek Nottie, tricep, and Joe Tooney pec did not practice today, Thursday. Pacheco with an ankle/toe injury plans to do the walkthrough but did not practice. Trey Smith from illness and Mike Edwards from concussion are back. They haven't said whether Edwards has completely passed protocol. I'm pretty sure it's
back,
coming.
I think.
So,
right?
yeah, he's probably ready to go. Trey Smith, we knew that was an illness. That wasn't going to be a big deal. Is this good news? I mean, it looks like to me it's all hinging on Joe Tooney. This is the big name. Is he going to play? Is he not? That's the big news. It's Tooney. Is Tooney going to be able to help this offensive line and Patrick Mahomes stay upright?
That is the big story. I mean, you have the best left guard in the entire game, arguably, we're talking about here, that could not be in the AFC Championship game. That's definitely huge. I know we talked about this a little bit yesterday on our live stream, Mike, but Allegretti's not a bad backup. So I'm not like freaking out or anything.
Right.
And I also think there's a chance that Joe Tooney could still play. We'll see. But like I said, Jason Dunn from Chief Concerns, he said he had the same injury when he was playing football, and they gave him the option of wearing a harness and actually playing still. They just said he said it stops the range of motion back is what it does. So there's a chance that Tooney could be out there. But the big news to me is the fact that Trey Smith will be ready to go and Mike Edwards is back. That helps out our secondary tremendously. Shamari Connor stepped up last week. Huge. Yeah. But you can't replace the experience and the ball hawkness of Mike Edwards. That guy's always around the ball and he creates turnovers. So I love to see him on the field. So I'm happy about that one.
Right. So today I was watching the press conferences. Matt Nagy spoke about MVS, Steve. And MVS he's taking a lot of heat. MVS, he's took a lot of heat. He says Quez has really stepped up in big-time games and big moments over the past few years. There are times when you don't connect, talking about with Pat, but Pat trusts him. He says so much stuff that's not a stat helps this offense out. And that's what he said about MVS. We kind of alluded to that. Andy don't want to take him off the field because of some of his blocking ability, some of the things he does. They say he stretches the field, the speed, blah, 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 blah. We get all this. But doesn't it just come down to the end of the day? You can take up for the guy all you want, and you can give him credit when he but we're giving this guy tons of credit for catching 3 balls. Like, you didn't do anything, like, you didn't catch, he should have had a touchdown, let's be honest. But you didn't make, like, this game-saving, like, amazing catch at the goal line to win. You didn't do, you know what I'm trying to say? It's just 3 catches. It wouldn't matter
anyway.
But I swear, MVS, he's going to escape again because of one half of a playoff performance.
It's fine, but he won't be back next year regardless. So it doesn't really matter. Give him his flowers, whatever you feel like you need to do. But 2 things can be true, Mike. He had a great game. He made some good catches, and his season was horrendous. He sucks.
Stunk.
So 2 things can be true, and that's what's going on here. So, yeah, props to MVS for making some good catches, but that doesn't mean anything at all about where he's going to be next year. He's not going to be a Chief.
I think if he would have caught maybe 2-3 more passes, he'd have had more than he had over the entire season.
Exactly.
Don't fact check that one. Dave Tobe was talking about the return guys, talking about McCole Hardman coming back, maybe Kadarius Toney being healthy. But he says, Dave Tobe, quote, Richie James is our guy. It is his job to lose, even with McCole and Kadarius Toney back. Do you like that? Because I believe, looking at all 3 phases of the game, butt kicker's been awesome this year.
Yeah.
But it's the return game sometimes that looks a little sus, especially Richie fielding them, way too deep, doing certain things. But a lot of people say that's what Tobe's telling them to do.
I think if he's healthy, I know people won't like this, but I think Kadarius Toney has to be your return man if he's healthy. Because, yeah, he might drop some passes here and there, and you don't like him on the field during offense. But there's no question that he gives a spark in special teams. We've seen it in the Super Bowl. We've seen it in several other games. He can make people miss like nobody else. He's got a lot of speed. I think you put Kadarius Toney back there. That's my opinion.
If Kadarius Toney plays this week, if he's activated and he gets on the field, you may see him do pretty similar to what MVS did last week in surprising a few people, making a few catches, making a few moves, helping the offense move. I'm not ready to write Kadarius Toney off as a bad football player.
I don't know if I trust him in a game like this. After this year, I don't know, like especially with him not being on the field.
They trusted McCole Hardman on the 2-yard line versus The Bills after he'd already fumbled once. So don't tell me they won't go back to the well.
Andy loves his guys to a fault sometimes. He trusts them to a fault sometimes. And I'm not a fan of McCole Hardman having the ball. But you know what's funny is we talked about all season that red zone struggles and how McCole Hardman could help with that. And then we get mad when they give McCole Hardman the ball in the red zone. So I'm not too mad at Andy about it. But at the same time, it's just like, I don't know if I would have made that decision in that situation. But also Travis Kelce talked about on New Heights that he feels responsible for that fumble because he missed the block and let the guy hit him. So, I mean, there's a lot of different variables that go into that. But of course, we give the crap to McCole Hardman because
Travis
it's so easy
Kelce's
to do.
just trying to be a good teammate.
I believe so.
That's all that is. But yeah, man, that's going to wrap it up for today. We may be back. We're going to be back on some lives. We'll be back on some other things. So go ahead and hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And thanks for being with us. Steve, do you got anything left for him?
Go Chiefs.
Go Chiefs.
There goes a sight from my soul.